The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
We're going to get our first guest on the show. This man, you can go on YouTube and watch him fully create the short-term birth certificate of Barack Obama that Snopes stole from him. And then, what do you know? He has also created a completely 100% accurate digital copy of the long-form birth certificate, proving it's computer-generated. And nobody in the mainstream media will even touch this one. It's a privilege to have him on the show. I'd like to welcome Dr. Ron Polland to the show. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ron.
Hey, how are you doing, Robert?
Oh, wonderful. And in fact, Dr. Polland, I wanted to ask you a few questions because these Obots, they've tried to smash you online. First thing they do is the Solinsky, attack the source. So where did you get your PhD from? I just want to hear it so they can just pretty much just shut them the hell up.
I have my PhD from Florida State University. It was in instructional systems. If you're familiar with instructional design, in other words, using computers for teaching and long-distance instruction, things like that.
Okay.
So I had a computer background.
Okay. See, that's the thing, because I notice a lot of computer experts, even if they don't have a computer background, they're still exceptional with computers, yet they were already trying to attack you, going, well, just because his PhD isn't in something that's IT or computer-based, as if that doesn't make you qualified. And anybody that's watched you on YouTube knows that you are more than qualified. So I guess that'd be our first question, Dr. Polland, is what motivated you to make that fake short-term birth certificate in the beginning anyways that Snopes stole from you?
Well, what happened is that when I took a look at the image, and it first showed up on the Daily Cost on June 12th, and I looked at it, and I said, this is not a real scan. This is not a legitimate scan image. And when I said that, I thought everybody else would be saying the same things. I never thought in a million years that 3 years later, I still would be fighting people who still don't believe that it's false, or that no one else has actually looked into it in the kind of depth that I have. Now that the long form has come out, people have more or less forgotten about the short form, even though the short form is the one which is the most deleterious.
Okay. And didn't the short form somewhat contradict the long form, at least on some levels?
Well, the thing with the long form, and what people didn't understand, is that the law at the time, which later was changed in 1982, but the law at the time, which was known as Territorial Law, Chapter 57, which covered out-of-state births. In a nutshell, you could get one of these short-form birth certificates if you were born outside of the state of Hawaii up to a year after you were born. So in other words, this particular birth certificate could not be used to prove you were physically born in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And that's the part that the Obots and the liberal media just could not understand.
Yeah, or they refused.
Secondly, they thought that natural born means, you only have to be born some place in the United States, and that's all that it took. And that was a deliberate attempt by the liberal media to change the meaning of natural born citizenship. They couldn't change it via an amendment. They couldn't change it via Congress. So they decided to change it in the media. And this is what they did. This is the reason why John McCain was the Republican candidate in 2008.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they're trying to change it right now, Ron. It's funny because now the Republicans are trying to put up Marco Rubio as a possible vice presidential candidate who obviously is not a natural-born citizen. So they're trying to manipulate and contort the definition to make native-born mean natural-born, which is a complete abhorrent lie. So this is dirty politics on both sides. Mind you, they all know this guy is the biggest phony in history, and this is a huge cover-up, but they're both protecting him.
It is. The thing where I differed from other people is that I saw it as a crime of identity fraud, whereas the focus of everyone else seemed to be on the natural-born citizenship issue. It's an important issue, no doubt. But for me, there's the question, the fact that this was a fraudulent government document that had been created, and it's hiding his true identity. And to me, that was what I wanted to find out. And that's what I spent the last 3 years of my life doing, is trying to find out who is this guy, who's behind him, what's the end game, what's the plan, because it's more than just putting him in the White House. There was an entire life history of him campaigning for the presidency. But, why and how did they forge his identity? Who is he really?
Okay.
I can tell you who he's not. I can tell you who his parents are not. I
Oh,
can tell you that he wasn't born in Hawaii. So there's a lot of things I can tell you that is not true about him.
okay. So
But it's the true things that are the hardest to find.
that sounds wonderful. We're going to definitely get into that. So, Ron, for clarity's sake, so you did create the short form birth certificate, correct?
Well, when you say create, and I forensically recreated the original long form forgery, short form forgery.
Okay.
And that was a bear to reproduce, because whoever put this thing together did it to show people that he can put things together that make absolutely no sense, except in his own mind.
Okay. And then
In other words, it was never intended to be a good-looking, a realistic-looking forgery. On the contrary, it was supposed to look like an enigma, like something weird
Okay.
that
And
nobody could figure out.
And so what did you recreate on YouTube? I watched you do a couple things. It was amazing.
Well, the first thing that I realized was that they were pixel patterns in between the letters. Other people had noticed them, particularly members of the Hot Air blog, had noticed that there were these odd anomalies in between the letters, and it gave the effect of the letters floating above the background, like not being printed on the paper, but sort of floating. And it was these pixel patterns, I'll call them. They called them, artifacts that struck me as being man-made. They had to have been man-made. I didn't know how they were done, but I was going to figure out how. So that was the key issue. The second one was the border. The border was done separately. The border looked unlike any other border that they had ever used. And trying to reproduce that border, it took about 6 months just to do that.
Wow. Okay.
So there are three parts to this. The border is one part. The artifacts is the second part, and then the third part is the text. In other words, the information, the content of the document that had to be reproduced.
Okay, so let's get to that, because you were when I spoke to you off there, you're telling me that you've gone through, or this has gone through, a good deal of reverse engineering. Can you care to specify on that?
Well, since there weren't any books out there that says, here's how you go about creating a forged birth certificate, it doesn't look like a forged birth certificate. I'll be honest with you, that actually forged my birth certificate when I was 18. I tried to get into a bar, and I was too young to go in, and so I forged my photostat. But beyond that, so
wow.
I could say that I had early experience in the area.
Yeah.
But to change the birth certificate meant that you had to change the information on it, and then not have it look obvious that it was changed. In other words, you can make it look too good. So one of the efforts of the forger was to put in these artifacts and make it look like it was a lousy forgery instead of a good forgery. In other words, it took more time to create a lousy forgery than a good one.
I see. Okay. Because I want to ask you, because you have a terrific ebook out, and it's called Alias Barack Obama, A Lie is Born, where you show how you systematically have disproven many of the White House claims. But one thing I want to ask you about, so the Hawaiian Health Department, the St. Petersburg Times, the Obama administration, PolitiFact, Fact Check, who's Annenberg Foundation, CNN, Snopes,
Right.
all of these are lied, and all these so-called fact checkers are really hardcore, biased, left-wing regime type sites, correct?
They are all part of a conspiracy, a true conspiracy to hide the identity of Barack Obama. And everything that you can imagine what a true conspiracy would be, it would be these people. Because everything that they've done has been to hide their own illegal activities.
Okay.
So you had someone who had to have made this to begin with. Then you had to have someone distribute it. And then they had another group to promote it or defend it. So we had groups that were promoting it, and we had groups that were defending it. We had groups that were printing and distributing it. This was all part of this conspiracy. And as it turns out, with all these copies floating around, the one place that did not have its own copies was the Obama campaign.
Yes,
The
of course.
people who supposedly produced this.
Nobody's ever seen a hard copy to this day. I like it when the head of the Hawaiian Health Department, what was her name, Chiyumi Fakino, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's half typed, half written. I've seen it, and then it comes out, it's all typed.
Well,
Everything has been...
That's something else, too, with the short form. I'm glad you're talking about the short form, because the short form deserves time of its own, and to get people to not start thinking about the recent long form. Because with the short form, the Hawaii Department never confirmed, would in fact refused to confirm that they released one to Obama. So they wouldn't even say that. They wouldn't even say, yes, we produced this for Obama. Strike one. Strike two. There's nothing showing that they ordered one from Hawaii. In other words, the Hawaii campaign didn't produce anything showing that they had ordered it. They didn't show anything that was even close to what the original looked like. You would think if you're the Obama campaign and you've ordered a copy of the certification of live birth, and you're going to produce the best copy possible. Well, they did the exact opposite. They made the worst copy possible. So, and they didn't even make it. It was made for them.
Yeah, so...
Same thing for fact check. It was made for them. Same thing for the daily costs. It was made for them.
I see. And so what did Snopes take out of your photo bucket? That was the short form, correct?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
It was a short form. See, what happened was there's a timeline, but the timeline, a part of it is faked. And the part that is faked is the one that was created by the St. Petersburg Times. If you want to find who is the head perpetrator of this document forgery, it's the St. Petersburg Times. I'll say that right now.
Oh my God!
Without any fear of repercussion. I'm at the point now where you don't like it, come after me. I'll be happy to prove in court that you did this. You know what I'm saying?
No, I've never heard that anywhere else, but Long Live America, right here and now.
Thank you. Yeah.
St. Petersburg Times,
I love it.
Head of the snake when it comes to this.
Here, check this out. They had 16 copies of the short form, 16 copies. They had 9 of those which were the long form. I'm not going to say long form. In other words, they were the full-page variety. They weren't trimmed. And then they had 8 that were trimmed. And they had 2 online services. One was PolitiFact, which was a clone of Fact Check. It was designed to be a clone of Fact Check. Its reason d'etre, its total reason for being, was to protect Obama, get him elected, and then defend that birth certificate. Now, here's something I bet you don't know, that PolitiFact, throughout 2008, never said a single word about Obama's citizenship in regards to the birth certificate. It's not why they wanted it. It's not how they used it.
Wow, I'm just blown away by the whole revelation here now.
You know why they wanted it? Do you know why they wanted the birth certificate? To prove, once again, for like the 43rd time, that his middle name was not Mohammed. That was the only reason.
Oh, my God.
And what I found in my research was that this was their phony rumor. They are the ones who invented this rumor, a false flag. This thing about his second middle name is Mohammed. So that was a ruse. That was the excuse to get the birth certificate. And then when they got it, they just basically used that to, continue to debunk the same rumor over and over and over again. And it was only until we got to 2009 that they suddenly took on the role of chief anti-birthers and started going after people like World Daily.
No, I see. And so I've noticed. I mean, you have recreated both the short form and the long form birth certificates on YouTube.
Yes,
correct?
And also Fact Check's mock-up. There's a third contender. What they did, and this is the stupidest thing they've ever done. They didn't need to do it, but I'm glad they did, is because they helped prove my theory. They took a printout of the forged scan. They printed it on laser printable transparent film, put that film onto a sheet of security paper, and then photograph that as a real thing.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.